Jesus freak here. Last few days have only been semi-productive at best. Just haven't had a lot of energy. Periodically, I've been able to force myself to get out and do something. It's still Thursday as I'm recording this. Be probably Friday by the time anyone's able to watch it. I had plans to go do 3 things today. I did 2. Just didn't have the energy to do the 3rd. And I had intended to do them on Tuesday. The first thing I did is I went to Latina's saying maybe I'd get some groceries there. Pulled me over well. Not running out of anything. Other than my pop, and it doesn't matter. I didn't buy anything. The second has to do with that $10 bill I flashed in the last video. I needed to make sure that I could get enough change for it. With the intention that I'm going to run down and hit the laundromat right near there. And that's been taken care of. The third is I was going to finish my major shopping run, which got cut short on Monday. I mean, on Saturday. So I had gotten a bunch of stuff, but I hadn't done my full trip. Like, well, situation's currently demanding that I cut it short and do the rest of my shopping another day. Because if I'm relying on someone else, I'm not going to hold them up and waste their time. If they have to be somewhere else, if they have to be doing something, then I'll say, you do what you have to do. You're the priority in your life. But that's not a problem for me. If someone offers to help me out, I'm willing to accept it, but I'm not going to go out of the way. And I'm not going to exploit their generosity more than I feel I can. We talk about ask and guess cultures. I think that's what's at play here. most of the people I talk to, if you need something, you ask for it. They're free to tell you no. But the way I grew up is you need it, you get it yourself, or you don't get it. It's all about self-reliance. And the fact that I come from that completely different mindset, it's funny. A lot of the people in my circle are liberal. I've ventured slightly more liberal over the years and made a slight trek back toward conservative and basically find myself right about in the middle. I understand most of you who are watching this video are probably more conservative politically than I am. That's why I don't get into politics too much, because I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash for that. But for someone who leans liberal, I tend to have in general a very conservative mindset. And that's a very strange dichotomy to have. See, my political leftward swing was a response to a need for self-preservation. It's all well and good when you have everything taken care of. But when you don't have everything and you can't get everything, and sometimes you have to rely on things you don't necessarily want to. I spent my entire adulthood on government assistance. Not because I wouldn't work, and not because I couldn't work, but because, as a liability, due to my mental conditions and neurological conditions, I was unhireable. So I wound up in this sort of dichotomy. I'm a grown-up, I need to take care of myself. Versus, I'm not being allowed to take care of myself. I'm not being allowed to do what I need. As if I'm going to get by, I'm going to have to rely on this government assistance. And I saw it as a necessary evil. But I also said, there's other people who are going to be slipping through the cracks. And it's a double-edged sword. You don't want to be reliant on others. And you don't want others to have to be reliant on others. But for some people, there's really no other choice. I don't feel like people should have to rot on the streets because of things that aren't their fault. And I guess in America in the 21st century, that makes me a liberal. Anyway, I've talked about my desire to avoid being hypocritical. A side effect of this is that when I have to interact with a lot of people in a store, I sometimes run into issues. Because on one side, you've got people who don't care about the guidelines and rules and regulations that are in place to keep this situation from getting any more out of hand than it's been. On the other side, you'll find a lot of paranoid people who say the government's not doing enough. On one side, I've had people who think I'm insane for keeping the 6 feet distance that the stores are saying you gotta keep. On the other hand, I've had issues with people getting mad at me when I was keeping a 6-foot distance because I'm not keeping enough distance from them. They want me to keep 10, 12 feet. After I had a near meltdown in Tops a couple months ago, I decided when I was by myself and, on my own time, I'd try to keep my shopping to later evening where I wouldn't run into so many people. Now, ordinarily, I would go there at 7:30 in the morning. That would be early enough that the entire store, including like the deli counter and stuff, would be open. But I wouldn't be dealing with so many people. Most people do their shopping later on. I find that when I go there around noon, that's when I run into a lot of people. When I go there in the afternoon, I really run into everyone when they're getting off work and stuff. So you're going to ask, why don't you go at 7:30? When stores started doing the senior hour, and at the time there were curfews in place, I said, you know what? This idea that stores should stay closed until about 9, and we should be off the streets, and unless we really have to be out. I said, you know what? I think that's a good idea right now, until this all blows over. And I said, these stores that are offering the first hours for people who are older, who are physically disabled, or who are at greater risk of developing COVID syndrome. To give the first hour of the day to them. I said, you know what? All stores should do that. And as a result, I have not entered a store since all this began prior to 10 a.m. Because to do otherwise would make me a hypocrite. Till all of this blows over, to even enter a store before 10 o'clock would make me a hypocrite. I am not, intentionally at least, a hypocrite. One of the biggest slams Jesus ever used against people. He called him a hypocrite. You're a bunch of phonies. And would I go so far as to shoot myself in the foot to not be a hypocrite? Yes, I would. Even when I've spent several days feeling a fiend for pop. I've been running down the supplies I've been using for my tea. Well, yeah, tea's probably better. Three teaspoons of sugar in a mug about this size. I believe it's a 12-ounce mug. Standard mug, I think, is 10 ounces, so I usually based around, 2 teaspoons in a 10-ounce mug. 2 teaspoons in an 8J8 foam cup. So I have to size up accordingly. It's not as much as I'd be getting if I drank a 8-ounce glass of pop. Maybe it's healthier. It's not the same thing. It's not what I'm really craving. But I'm like, it's enough. It'll suffice. Because if I'm not going to the store, I just gotta use what I have. If there's anything someone like me who's known how to live with and how to live without, hey, that sounds like something Paul said, doesn't it? I have the ingenuity to deal with the times that I don't have. So it's not a problem if I have to wait all this time. I'll make another attempt tomorrow. Well, Friday, whenever it is. Do what I was going to do then. Jesus, freak out.